At 21:47 hours on November 18, 1944, Private First Class Daniel Kovac crouched 25 yards from a German bunker in Hürtgen Forest, holding something that looked like a hand grenade wrapped in electrical tape with a chunk of plastic explosive strapped to its side. The device weighed 2 pounds. Standard Army Mag 2 fragmentation grenades weighed 1.3 pounds. The difference mattered. Inside the bunker, German voices argued in sharp bursts. 4 men, maybe 5. Machine gun positioned at the firing slit. Muzzle flash visible every 8 to 10 seconds as they swept the approaches. Behind Kovac, his squad watched from 30 yards back. 7 men pressed flat in the mud, rain soaked through wool uniforms. Temperature 38 degrees. Smell of wet pine needles and cordite hung in the air. Kovac's squad sergeant had called his modified grenade a suicide stick. His platoon leader had threatened court-martial for unauthorized modification of military ordnance. The engineering officer said it violated 17 separate explosive handling protocols. Standard Army doctrine said, use approved weapons only. Follow the manual. Don't improvise with high explosives unless you want to blow yourself up. But standard Mag 2 grenades weren't clearing German bunkers. 4-second fuse delay gave defenders time to grab the grenade and throw it back out the firing slit. Happened 11 times in the past 3 days. 11 American grenades thrown back. 11 American casualties. The 2nd Infantry Division had been trying to clear this bunker complex for 72 hours. Lost 19 men, gained 0 bunkers. Kovac armed his modified grenade, pulled the pin, released the spoon. 2-second fuse now active. He had 2 seconds to throw it through a 6-inch high firing slit from 25 yards away in darkness and rain. 2 seconds before 14 ounces of Composition B and C2 plastic explosive detonated in his hand. In the next 4 hours, 6 grenades like this would kill 31 Germans. In 4 days, they would get Kovac court-martialed. But right now, at 21:47 hours on a cold November night, none of that mattered. What mattered was throwing hard and accurate before the fuse ran out. Kovac threw. Hürtgen Forest in November 1944 was 50 square miles of dense German woodland that had become an American graveyard. Part of the Siegfried Line defensive system. Concrete bunkers and pillboxes positioned every 200 to 400 yards. Interlocking fields of fire covering every approach. The 2nd Infantry Division had been assigned to clear fortified positions starting November 1st. 3 weeks of combat, limited progress, heavy casualties. The bunkers were the problem. German engineers had built them during 1938 and 1939 when the Reich fortified its western border. Reinforced concrete walls 12 to 18 inches thick. Steel-reinforced roofs 2 feet thick in some positions. Designed to withstand direct artillery hits. Each bunker featured narrow firing slits, 6 inches high, 24 inches wide, just large enough for a machine gun barrel and gunner's line of sight. Too small for flamethrower teams to engage effectively. Too narrow for bazooka crews to get clean shots. Standard American infantry tactics for bunker clearing followed established doctrine. Suppress the position with rifle and machine gun fire. Maneuver close under covering fire. Throw fragmentation grenades through the firing slit. Clear the position with small arms. Worked perfectly in training. Failed consistently in Hürtgen Forest. The Germans had learned to counter American grenade tactics. Station 1 soldier at each firing slit specifically to watch for grenades. When an American grenade came through the opening, grab it immediately. Throw it back out before detonation. The Mag 2 fragmentation grenade had a 4-second fuse delay. Pull the pin, release the spoon, 4 seconds until detonation. German soldiers could grab the grenade in 1 to 2 seconds. Takes 1 second to throw it back through the slit. That left 1 to 2 seconds of safety margin. More than enough time. American casualties from their own returned grenades. 43 soldiers in the 2nd Infantry Division alone during November 1944. The numbers told the story. Private Thomas Chen, November 15th. Threw grenade through bunker firing slit. German defender caught it, threw it back. Chen took the full blast, killed instantly. Corporal William Morrison, November 16th. Same pattern, his own grenade came back out, exploded at his feet, lost both legs, died during evacuation. Sergeant Frank Murphy, November 17th. Squad leader, 8 years in the Army. Threw his grenade. German threw it back. Shrapnel through his chest. Bled out before the medic reached him. The specific bunker complex designated Objective Wolf had resisted 3 days of continuous assault. 7 concrete bunkers arranged in a defensive arc. Each bunker covered the approaches to adjacent positions. Estimated 40 German defenders. 2nd Infantry Division had committed 3 rifle companies to clearing the objective. Companies A and B both failed. Combined casualties, 31 men. 0 bunkers cleared. Engineers tried flamethrowers. Effective range 40 yards, required getting too close. German machine gun fire cut down 3 flamethrower teams before they could engage. Range limitations made the weapon useless. Engineers tried bazookas, 2.36-inch rockets, designed for light armor and fortifications. The concrete was too thick. Rockets impacted, exploded, left scorch marks. Minimal structural damage. Germans inside unharmed. Artillery bombardment. 500 rounds of 105mm howitzer fire on Objective Wolf during November 16th. Rounds impacted around bunkers, threw up dirt, through it, and shrapnel. The reinforced concrete absorbed the blasts. Germans waited inside until bombardment lifted, then resumed firing positions. Artillery crews calculated they would need direct hits with 155mm shells to crack the bunkers. Accuracy at that range against targets that small was impossible. Waste of ammunition. Satchel charges. 20-pound explosive charges designed for demolition work. Required getting within 10 yards of the target. Required placing the charge against the bunker wall. Required lighting a fuse and retreating before detonation. 6 engineers killed attempting satchel charge assaults on Objective Wolf. German machine gun fire killed them before they could place charges. The ones who got close enough to place charges couldn't retreat fast enough. Died in their own explosions. Battalion Command reviewed the casualty reports, read the after-action summaries, issued orders to continue using standard tactics. Keep trying grenades. Follow the manual. Avoid improvisation. The manual was written by men who had never seen Hürtgen Forest. Written by officers who had never watched their own grenades kill their own soldiers. But someone had been watching. Someone who saw the problem differently. Daniel Kovac was born in 1923 in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Coal country. His father, Stanley Kovac, worked the anthracite mines. 23 years underground. Came home every night black with coal dust. Coughed constantly. Polish immigrant family. 3 brothers, Catholic, lived in company housing. 2-room apartment, shared 1 bathroom with 4 other families. Danny grew up watching his father descend into the mines every morning. Watched him, aged 20 years and 10. Watched the coal dust slowly kill him. Summer of 1938. Danny turned 15. His father got him hired at Blue Coal Mine No. 9, Powder Monkey. The kid who packed dynamite charges into drill holes for controlled blasts. Dangerous work, required precision. Mistakes killed people. Old Welsh miners trained him. Men who had been blasting coal seams since the 1910s. They taught him blast physics. How explosives create pressure waves. How different explosive types produce different effects. Dynamite versus black powder versus newer compositions. Danny learned fragmentation patterns. How steel casings direct explosive force. How tamping material focuses blast direction. Learned detonation velocity. Dynamite detonates at 21,000 feet per second. Black powder at 6,000 feet per second. Faster detonation creates more shattering effect. Slower detonation creates more heaving effect. Different applications require different explosives. Learned shaped charges. Directing explosive force in specific directions. Concentrate the blast. Maximize effect on target. Minimize waste. The Welsh miners were artists. They could drop specific coal seams without collapsing tunnels, could blast through rock formations without damaging adjacent structures. Mathematical precision applied to controlled violence. Danny worked summers from 1938 through 1942. 4 years. Packed over 200 controlled blasts. 0 accidents, 0 injuries. Developed an instinct for explosives. Could calculate precise charges needed for specific effects. Understood that explosives were tools. Predictable, reliable, more trustworthy than luck. December 1942, 6 months after Pearl Harbor. Danny enlisted. Army recruiters saw coal mining experience on his application. Assigned him to demolitions based on civilian expertise. Basic training at Fort Benning, Georgia. 8 weeks at engineer school learning military explosives. C2 plastic explosive, TNT. Composition B, Bangalore torpedoes, satchel charges. The military explosives were more powerful than mining dynamite. More stable, more versatile. Danny deployed September 1944. 2nd Infantry Division landed in France, fought through hedgerow country, reached German border early November. Arrived Hürtgen Forest, November 1st. His first day in the forest, he watched American tactics fail. Watched soldiers throw grenades into bunkers. Watched Germans throw them back. Watched Americans die from their own weapons. Danny saw it as an engineering problem. The Mike 2 fragmentation grenade contained 5.5 ounces of TNT. Designed for anti-personnel effects. Cast iron body designed to fragment into shrapnel. Effective casualty radius 5 yards in open terrain. But bunkers weren't open terrain. Bunkers were reinforced concrete boxes. Fragmentation meant nothing against concrete. Shrapnel bounced off walls. Germans inside stayed protected. What killed inside enclosed spaces wasn't fragmentation. It was overpressure. Blast wave compression. When explosives detonate in confined spaces, pressure waves have nowhere to dissipate. They bounce off walls, amplify, create crushing force, rupture lungs, cause traumatic brain injury, collapse internal organs. That was what bunkers needed, not shrapnel, pressure. Standard Mach 2 grenades didn't generate enough overpressure. 5.5 ounces of TNT wasn't sufficient, required more explosive mass, required faster detonating compounds, required modified design. Danny understood this immediately. His years in the coal mines had taught him how to calculate explosive effects. He approached his platoon leader during the first week, Lieutenant James Parker, West Point graduate, by-the-book officer. Danny explained the problem, explained the solution. Bigger explosive charge, shorter fuse delay, modified grenades specifically for bunker clearing. Parker's response was immediate and final. We use Army-approved ordnance, Private, not coal mine tricks. Danny tried again the next day, showed calculations, explained blast physics. Parker threatened disciplinary action for questioning doctrine. End of discussion. But Danny kept watching, kept seeing the pattern repeat. American soldiers throwing grenades, Germans throwing them back, Americans dying. The math was simple. Every grenade assault on a bunker had approximately 60% probability of the grenade being returned. Every returned grenade had approximately 90% probability of causing American casualties. The numbers didn't lie. By mid-November, Danny had seen enough. Officers wouldn't listen. Doctrine wouldn't change. Soldiers kept dying. So he decided to solve the problem himself. Without permission, without authorization, using skills learned in Pennsylvania coal mines and 4 years of controlled blasts. He would build grenades that worked. Grenades that killed through overpressure instead of fragmentation. Grenades with fuses too short for Germans to throw back. Grenades that violated 17 military regulations but saved American lives. The first prototype took him 4 hours to build in an abandoned farmhouse. The 6th grenade took him 30 minutes. By November 18th, he had 6 modified grenades packed in a canvas satchel. 6 chances to prove his engineering was right and Army doctrine was wrong. 6 chances to save his squad or get himself court-martialed. That night, Company C received orders to assault Objective Wolf. Expected casualties, 12 to 15 soldiers. Those numbers made Danny's decision easy. He packed his modified grenades, told his squad sergeant they were standard Mach 2s, moved forward into the darkness. At 21:47 hours, he threw his first modified grenade into Bunker 1. 2 seconds later, the explosion proved that sometimes survival requires breaking every rule in the manual. Danny Kovac built his first modified grenade on November 14, 1944, in an abandoned German farmhouse 400 yards behind American lines. The farmhouse had taken artillery fire. Roof partially collapsed. Walls still standing. Empty except for broken furniture and spent shell casings. Good light from a hole in the west wall. Good privacy. Nobody asked questions about a demolition specialist working alone in a bombed building. The standard Mach 2 fragmentation grenade was inadequate for bunkers. Danny had known this from the first day. 5.5 ounces of TNT. Designed to fragment into shrapnel. Effective against personnel in open terrain. Useless against reinforced concrete. The engineering problem was simple. Bunkers required overpressure, not fragmentation. Required blast force sufficient to kill through solid walls. Required 3 times the explosive power of a standard grenade. Danny calculated the requirements. Standard Mach 2 produced approximately 15 psi overpressure at 10 feet in enclosed spaces. Lethal overpressure for human beings was 30 to 40 psi. Required tripling the explosive force. Required faster detonating compounds than standard TNT. Required additional mass despite reduced throwing distance. He sourced materials carefully. Base component was the Mach 2 grenade itself. Standard issue. Every soldier carried 4 to 6 grenades, easy to acquire without raising suspicion. Upgrade explosive was Composition B, military explosive compound, 50% more powerful than TNT. Detonation velocity 26,000 feet per second versus TNT's 21,000 feet per second. More shattering power, more pressure generation. Engineers used Composition B in Bangalore torpedoes for clearing wire obstacles and minefields. Danny knew where Bangalore torpedoes were stored, knew which boxes had been damaged and written off inventory. Additional mass came from C2 plastic explosive, another engineer supply, malleable, stable, could be shaped and formed. Detonation velocity 27,000 feet per second. Even more powerful than Composition B. Danny needed C2 for external mass, for increasing total explosive content without modifying the grenade body structure. Fuse modification required components from defective artillery fuses. Artillery rounds occasionally failed to detonate. Dud rounds got collected and broken down for parts. Danny requisitioned 6 defective fuses through normal channels. Nobody questioned a demolition specialist requesting dud components for training purposes. The fuse timing mechanisms could be adapted, could be shortened from 4 seconds to 2 seconds. Required careful work, but Danny had steady hands and coal mine experience. Binding materials were simple. Electrical tape from signal corps supplies, parachute cord from supply dumps, both items commonly used for field repairs. Nobody tracked them closely. Construction process was methodical. Danny worked like he was back in the blue coal mine. Precise, careful, respectful of the explosives. Step 1. Unscrew the Make 2 base plug. Required a special wrench. Danny made one from a bent spoon. The base plug threads were standard. Came off easily once you had the right tool. Step 2. Remove the TNT filler. 5.5 ounces of explosive compound packed into the grenade body. Danny used a wooden dowel to push it out. Didn't want metal tools near explosive compounds. The TNT came out in chunks. Yellow-brown color, waxy texture. He set it aside for disposal. Step 3. Pack Composition B into the grenade body. 8 ounces. 50% more than the original TNT. Composition B was more dense, more powerful. Danny packed it carefully, eliminated air pockets, compressed it firmly. The grenade body held 8 ounces without difficulty. Step 4. Wrap exterior with C2 plastic explosive. 6-ounce blocks. Moldable like clay. Danny shaped it around the grenade body, avoided the fuse assembly at the top, created a uniform layer approximately half an inch thick. Added mass, added explosive power. The grenade now resembled a Mech 2 that had been dipped in gray putty. Step 5. Secure with electrical tape and parachute cord. Wrap the entire assembly. Black electrical tape covering the C2. Parachute cord wound around the body for structural integrity. The finished product looked crude, looked improvised. But Danny knew it would work. Knew the physics were correct. Step 6. Modify the fuse delay. Standard Mech 2 fuse burned for 4 seconds. Too long. Gave Germans time to react, time to throw the grenade back. Danny needed 2 seconds, half the standard delay. Just enough time to throw, not enough time for Germans to respond. He disassembled the fuse mechanism, removed the delay element, replaced it with a shortened delay element from artillery fuse components, cut it precisely, tested the burn rate using powder trails, got it to 2.1 seconds, close enough. Total weight of the modified grenade was 2 pounds. Standard Mach 2 weighed 1.3 pounds. The additional weight reduced throwing distance. Standard Mach 2 could be thrown 35 yards by an average soldier. Danny's modified version maxed out at 20 yards. The reduced range was acceptable. Most bunker assaults required closing to within 25 to 30 yards anyway. The extra weight was worth it for the explosive power. Total explosive content was 14 ounces. 8 ounces. Composition B inside the grenade body. 6 ounces C2 plastic explosive wrapped around the exterior versus standard Mach 2 with 5.5 ounces TNT. 2.5 times the explosive mass, plus higher velocity detonation compounds. Combined effect would generate approximately 45 psi overpressure at 10 feet in enclosed spaces, well above lethal threshold. Sufficient to rupture lungs, sufficient to cause traumatic brain injury, sufficient to kill through intact concrete walls. The 2-second fuse was critical. Germans needed 1 to 2 seconds to recognize the threat, needed 1 second to grab the grenade, needed 1 second to throw it back. Total reaction time, 2 to 4 seconds. Danny's 2-second fuse eliminated their response window. By the time they grabbed it, it detonated. Danny tested the first prototype on November 15th. Found a destroyed German pillbox 400 yards behind American lines. Position had been abandoned for 2 weeks. Concrete walls still intact. Perfect test facility. He threw the modified grenade through the firing slit from 20 yards. Perfect accuracy. The grenade entered the opening, disappeared inside. 2 seconds later, the explosion was different from standard grenades. Deeper bass note. Felt through the ground. The pillbox shook. Dust burst from the firing slit. Danny approached carefully, looked inside. The blast had cracked the concrete walls, visible fractures radiating from the detonation point. Standard Mach 2 grenades left scorch marks. His modified version created structural damage. The test proved the concept. The physics worked. The fuse timing worked. The throwing distance was manageable. Danny built 6 more grenades over the next 3 days. Worked at night when his platoon was resting. Stored the completed grenades in his personal gear. Canvas bag at the bottom of his pack. Covered with extra socks and rations. Nobody inspected personal gear that closely. He told one person, Private First Class Eddie Rodriguez. They shared a foxhole, shared guard duty. Rodriguez was from El Paso, Texas, 22 years old, mechanic before the war, understood tools and engineering. Danny showed him the modified grenades on November 16th, explained the construction, explained the physics. Rodriguez looked at the grenades for a long time, finally said, "You're either crazy or brilliant. Probably both." Danny asked, "You going to report me?" Rodriguez said, "Hell no. Standard grenades are getting us killed. If you found something that works, I want you using it." But keeping secrets in an infantry company was impossible. Too many people watching, too many inspections. Captain James Whitmore discovered the modified grenades on November 16th during a routine gear inspection. Whitmore was the engineering officer. West Point graduate, class of 1939. By-the-book officer. Believed in regulations, believed in doctrine, believed in proper channels. Whitmore found 2 modified grenades in Danny's pack during afternoon inspection. Pulled them out, examined them. His face went pale. He recognized Composition B, recognized C2 plastic explosive, recognized unauthorized modifications. Whitmore's voice was quiet and dangerous. "Private Kovac, what are these?" Danny stood at attention. "Modified grenades, sir." "Modified for what purpose?" "Bunker clearing, sir. Standard grenades aren't working. These generate higher overpressure, shorter fuse delay." Whitmore set the grenades down carefully, like they might detonate. "This violates 17 separate ordnance protocols. Unauthorized modification of issued equipment. Handling Class A explosives without supervision, creating unauthorized ordnance, possession of excessive explosive materials. You could face court-martial. You could face prison time." Danny said nothing. Whitmore continued, "These devices are dangerous. They could detonate prematurely. They could fail to detonate. They could explode in your hand. You could kill yourself. You could kill your squad. Sir, I've made over 200 controlled blasts in civilian life. 0 accidents. I know what I'm doing. You're not in a coal mine, Private. You're in a combat zone. Different rules, different consequences." Whitmore ordered Danny to destroy all modified grenades immediately. Ordered him to report to battalion headquarters the following morning. Ordered him to cease all unauthorized explosive work. End of discussion. But Danny didn't destroy the grenades. He hid them better, moved them to a different location, wrapped them in canvas and buried them 50 yards from his foxhole, marked the spot with a notched tree. He had built 7 grenades. Whitmore had confiscated 2. 5 remained. The supply situation got worse. Sergeant First Class Robert Murphy was the company supply sergeant. 19 years in the Army, managed inventory like a banker, tracked every round of ammunition, every ration, every piece of equipment. Murphy noticed Composition B missing from engineer supplies. 4 Bangalore torpedoes had been broken down, explosive filling removed. Murphy investigated, checked requisition records, checked work details, tracked the missing explosives to Danny through process of elimination. Murphy reported to Captain David Mitchell, the company commander. Mitchell was different from Whitmore. Mitchell had combat experience. North Africa, Sicily, Italy, 3 campaigns, multiple wounds. Mitchell understood that combat was different from manuals, understood that survival sometimes required flexibility. Mitchell called Danny to the command post on November 17th. Small dugout with a canvas roof, map table, radio, field telephone. Mitchell sat behind the table. Whitmore stood to his left, Murphy to his right. All 3 officers stared at Danny. Mitchell spoke first. "Private Kovac, you're facing multiple charges: unauthorized modification of equipment, theft of military property, violation of ordnance safety protocols, endangering personnel through improvised devices. Captain Whitmore wants you court-martialed. Sergeant Murphy wants you reduced in rank. I want to understand what the hell you were thinking." Danny explained. Explained the grenade return problem. Explained the casualty statistics. Explained the engineering solution. Explained his background. Explained his experience. Explained that standard tactics were failing and men were dying. Mitchell listened without interrupting. When Danny finished, Mitchell said, 19 men dead in 3 days, Private. 19. Standard tactics aren't working. I understand why you did this. But you violated regulations. You broke the chain of command. You created unauthorized ordnance. Whitmore interjected. Sir, he needs to face charges. Set an example. Maintain discipline. Mitchell held up one hand. Silence. He looked at Danny. You blow your hand off with that thing. I'm putting you up for disciplinary action for self-inflicted wounds. Understood? Yes, sir. Mitchell's next words were careful. I'm ordering you to destroy those grenades. What you do after that is between you and God. Dismissed. Danny saluted, left the command post. He understood. Mitchell couldn't officially approve, couldn't give permission. But he wasn't going to stop Danny either. Unofficial permission to proceed. As long as Mitchell maintained plausible deniability. Danny's squad had mixed reactions. Squad Sergeant Paul Henderson called them Kovac's suicide sticks. Said they looked dangerous. Said they looked unstable. Private Thomas Bailey agreed. That thing looks like it'll kill whoever throws it. But Rodriguez defended Danny. Maybe. But standard grenades are definitely killing us. Private James Wilson was blunt. I'd rather get shot by Germans than blown up by Kovac's Frankenstein grenade. Most of the squad sided with Wilson and Bailey. The modified grenades looked wrong. Looked improvised. Looked like they'd been assembled by someone who didn't know what he was doing. The electrical tape. The crude wrapping. The bulky appearance. Nothing like the clean, manufactured look of standard ordnance. But nobody reported Danny. Nobody turned him in. Because everyone had watched standard tactics fail. Everyone had seen grenades thrown back. Everyone had lost friends to their own weapons. So they complained and worried and called the grenades suicide sticks. But they didn't stop Danny from building them. November 18th, 1944. Pre-mission briefing at 17:30 hours. All of Company C assembled in a clearing. Captain Mitchell stood on an ammunition crate. Map spread on a makeshift table. Objective Wolf marked in red. Mitchell's briefing was direct. Mission is to clear bunker complex designated Objective Wolf. 7 bunkers. Estimated 40 German defenders. Companies A and B already tried. Combined casualties 31 men. 0 bunkers taken. Now it's our turn. The tactical plan was standard doctrine. Suppressed bunkers with rifle and machine gun fire. Maneuver close under covering fire. Throw grenades through firing slits. Clear positions with small arms. Move to next bunker. Repeat until objective secured. Expected casualties were 12 to 15 soldiers. Mitchell said this without emotion. Just stated the number. Expected cost of the mission. The men absorbed this information. 12 to 15 casualties meant approximately 15% of the company. Meant some of them wouldn't come back. Standard calculus of infantry combat. Danny did his own calculations. 12 to 15 casualties, 7 bunkers. Average 2 casualties per bunker. That matched the pattern he'd observed. Standard grenade assaults had approximately 60% failure rate. Every failed assault typically resulted in 2 to 3 casualties. The numbers were consistent. The numbers were predictable. The numbers were unacceptable. After the briefing, Danny retrieved his 5 remaining modified grenades from their hiding spot. Added 1 more he'd completed that afternoon. 6 total. He packed them in a canvas satchel, wrapped each grenade in cloth to prevent clinking, covered them with standard grenades on top. Told Henderson they were regulation Mech A2s. Henderson didn't inspect closely, too busy preparing for the mission. Rodriguez knew the truth, found Danny packing the grenades at 19:30 hours. You're really doing this? Yeah. If this works, you save the squad. If it doesn't, you're dead anyway. Danny nodded. Rodriguez asked the hard question. What if you save the squad and they court-martial you anyway? Danny had thought about this. Then at least the squad's alive to testify. Company C moved out at 2100 hours, 400 yards through Hürtgen Forest to assault positions. Cold rain falling, temperature 38 degrees. German artillery landed 200 yards north. Periodic flashes. Rumble felt through boots. Smell of high explosive. Smell of burning wood. Smell of wet earth. They reached assault positions at 21:45 hours. Objective Wolf visible through the trees. 7 concrete bunkers arranged in defensive arc. Muzzle flashes from firing slits. Tracer rounds cutting through the darkness. German voices carrying across the open ground. Distance to nearest bunker approximately 60 yards. Covered approach maybe 40 yards. Final assault across open ground 20 yards. Standard attack parameters. Danny's fire team was assigned Bunker 1. Team consisted of Danny, Rodriguez, Bailey, and Wilson. Henderson as squad sergeant would coordinate from rear position. Standard assault formation. Suppress, approach, grenade, clear. Danny volunteered to throw the grenades. Nobody argued. Demolition specialist should handle explosives. Made sense? Protocol. But Danny knew the real reason. He was the only one who trusted his modified grenades. The only one who understood they would work. The only one willing to bet his life on coal mine physics and 2-second fuses. At 21:47 hours, Henderson gave the signal. The assault on Objective Wolf began. Danny's hand closed around the first modified grenade. 2 pounds of engineered violence. Product of Pennsylvania coal mines and German bunker warfare. Creation that violated 17 regulations, but might save 17 lives. Time to find out which mattered more, rules or results. The German machine gun in Bunker 1 fired in 6-round bursts, every 8 seconds. Methodical, disciplined, muzzle flash visible through the firing slit. Tracer rounds walked across the approach. Danny watched the pattern, counted the intervals, waited for the suppression fire to start. Henderson's signal came at 21:47 hours. 4 M1 Garands opened fire, 1 Browning automatic rifle. 30 rounds per second hammering the bunker. Rounds sparked off concrete around the firing slit. The German machine gun stopped firing, pulled back from the opening. Standard defensive response. Wait out the suppression, Resume firing when Americans advanced. Danny had 10 seconds, maybe 15. He sprinted forward, 45 yards to 25 yards. Boots slipping in mud, rain in his eyes. The canvas satchel bounced against his hip. He reached 25 yards, maximum effective throwing distance with a 2-pound grenade. Any closer, and he'd be in machine gun range when the Germans resumed firing. Danny pulled his first modified grenade from the satchel. Felt the weight. 2 pounds, electrical tape rough under his fingers. He pulled the pin, released the spoon, heard the fuse ignite. 2 seconds. He threw hard, overhand, aimed for the center of the firing slit. The grenade arced through darkness and rain, black shape against black sky. It hit the top edge of the firing slit, bounced, fell inside. Danny dove flat, pressed into the mud, covered his head with his arms. 2.1 seconds after release, the grenade detonated. The explosion was different from standard grenades. Deeper bass note, felt through the ground. The bunker shook. Concrete dust burst from the firing slit. Flash of orange light from the interior. Then silence. No secondary explosions, no screaming, no return fire. Just silence and the sound of rain. Danny waited 10 seconds. Standard procedure. Make sure the position is neutralized. He rose to a crouch. M1 Garand ready. Advanced to the bunker. 15 yards, 10 yards, 5 yards. Still no movement from the firing slit. He reached the concrete wall, pressed against it, breathing hard, adrenaline making his hands shake. He moved to the firing slit, pulled his flashlight, angled the beam inside. 4 German soldiers, all dead, lying in various positions, no visible wounds, no blood, no shrapnel damage. But blood ran from their ears and noses. Eyes open, mouths open, killed by blast overpressure, lungs ruptured, internal organs crushed by pressure waves that had bounced off the concrete walls. The physics had worked exactly as calculated. Rodriguez reached the bunker, Bailey and Wilson behind him. They looked through the firing slit, saw the bodies, saw the blast damage, saw the cracked concrete walls. Rodriguez said, "What the hell was in that thing?" Bailey stared at Danny. That wasn't a standard grenade. Henderson arrived. Squad sergeant, 8 years in the Army. He'd seen plenty of combat. He looked inside the bunker, looked at Danny. "Kovac, what did you just throw?" "Something that works, Sergeant." "You got more of those?" 5 more. Henderson made his decision in 3 seconds. "Use them. We'll deal with regulations later." Bunker 1 cleared. 0 American casualties. Time elapsed 4 minutes. 7 bunkers remaining. Bunker 2 was 60 yards northeast, connected to Bunker 1 by a communication trench. Germans inside had heard the first explosion. They were alert now, ready. Machine gun fire from the slit was heavier, more aggressive. They knew Americans were coming. Danny's team approached from the east, used the tree line for cover, got to 40 yards. The suppression fire started. Garands and the bar, same pattern, same tactics. But the Germans didn't pull back from the firing slit this time. They kept firing, disciplined, professional. They'd learned from Bunker 1, wouldn't give Americans free approach. Danny had to get closer, 30 yards, maximum throwing distance. But crossing from 40 yards to 30 yards meant exposed movement under machine gun fire. Rodriguez went first, sprinted, made it. Danny went next. Felt rounds snap past his head, heard them crack. Supersonic, close. He dove behind a fallen log at 30 yards, safe, breathing hard. He pulled the second modified grenade, armed it, threw from a kneeling position. The grenade went through the firing slit. Clean, perfect throw. Danny didn't wait to watch. Dove flat immediately, covered up. The explosion came 2 seconds later. Same deep concussion, same pressure wave through the ground. The machine gun stopped firing. Danny waited 5 seconds, advanced, checked the bunker. 3 Germans inside, all dead. Same pattern. Blast overpressure, no external wounds, just blood from ears and noses. 1 German had been reaching for the grenade when it detonated. His hand was extended toward where the grenade had landed. He'd tried to grab it, tried to throw it back, but 2 seconds wasn't enough time. The fuse had beaten him. Bunker 2 cleared. Time elapsed 8 minutes from start. 0 American casualties, 6 bunkers remaining. Bunker 3 sat at the north end of the complex, connected to Bunker 2 by a communication trench. Danny's team advanced along the trench. Dangerous, confined space, perfect ambush position, but faster than crossing open ground. They found Germans in the trench, 5 men retreating from Bunker 3 toward fallback positions. Germans saw Americans. Both sides opened fire simultaneously, range 15 feet, point blank. Bailey took a round through the shoulder, went down. Wilson killed 1 German. Rodriguez killed another. The remaining 3 Germans turned to run deeper into the trench. Danny pulled his 3rd modified grenade, armed it, threw it into the trench ahead of the retreating Germans. The grenade bounced once, rolled. The Germans saw it, started to run. 2 seconds. Not enough time, not enough distance. The explosion in the confined trench was catastrophic. Blast pressure had nowhere to dissipate, amplified by the trench walls. All 3 Germans died instantly. The pressure wave traveled back down the trench, knocked Danny and Rodriguez off their feet. Ears ringing. Temporary deafness, but alive. Bailey was bleeding from his shoulder wound, not arterial, through and through. Rodriguez applied a field dressing. Bailey could still move, could still fight. They continued forward. Bunker 3 was abandoned. Germans had fled before Danny's team arrived. The bunker was empty, cleared without direct assault. Danny's grenades had created psychological effect. Germans were retreating rather than defending. Fear of the new American weapons. 3 bunkers cleared. Time elapsed 14 minutes. 1 American casualty. Bailey wounded. 4 bunkers remaining. Bunker 4 was the largest in the complex. 2 firing slits, 1 facing south, 1 facing west. Estimated 8 to 10 Germans inside. Heavy resistance. Both machine guns firing. Coordinated fields of fire, covering all approaches. This position would be difficult. Danny coordinated with Rodriguez. Simultaneous assault on both firing slits. Danny would take the south slit with his 4th modified grenade. Rodriguez would take the west slit with a standard grenade. Purpose was suppression. Keep Germans focused on multiple threats. Divide their attention. They moved into position. Henderson counted down. 3, 2, 1, execute. Danny threw his modified grenade through the south slit. Perfect accuracy. Rodriguez threw his standard grenade through the west slit. Both grenades entered simultaneously. The German at the west firing slit grabbed Rodriguez's grenade. 4-second fuse. Plenty of time. He threw it back out. The grenade exploded outside the bunker. Rodriguez was 10 yards away, took shrapnel in his left leg, went down, screaming. Danny's modified grenade detonated inside with its 2-second fuse. No time for Germans to react. Massive explosion. The concrete walls cracked visibly. Dust and smoke burst from both firing slits. The bunker shook. Secondary explosion inside. Ammunition cooking off. Then silence. Danny advanced, checked both firing slits. 8 Germans inside, all dead. Some from blast overpressure, some from secondary explosions. Complete kill. But Rodriguez was wounded. Shrapnel had torn through his left calf muscle, bleeding heavily. Medic was called forward. Rodriguez was evacuated. Bunker 4 cleared. Time elapsed 26 minutes. 2 American casualties. Bailey wounded. Rodriguez wounded. 3 bunkers remaining. 3 modified grenades remaining. The Germans in the remaining bunkers knew something had changed. American tactics were different. American grenades were different. Radio intercepts later revealed German defenders calling for reinforcements, reporting new American weapons, requesting permission to retreat. Permission denied. Orders were to hold position. Bunker 5 was attacked at 22:38 hours. Germans had pulled back from the firing slits, staying deep inside the bunker, away from the openings, trying to avoid the blast effects. But pulling back didn't help. Danny threw his 5th modified grenade through the slit. The grenade detonated deep inside. Blast overpressure filled the entire enclosed space. Nowhere to hide. 4 Germans killed, all from concussive force, even though they were 15 feet from the detonation point. Bunker 6 showed white cloth through the firing slit at 22:51 hours. Surrender signal. 3 Germans emerged with hands raised. Standard procedure was to accept surrender, secure prisoners, clear the bunker. But Danny's combat experience in Hürtgen Forest had taught him caution. Germans sometimes used false surrenders. 3 men come out. 2 men stay hidden inside. Wait for Americans to approach. Then open fire. Danny called for the Germans to exit, ordered them in German. All personnel exit with hands visible. 3 Germans came out, surrendered. But Danny heard movement inside. Voices. At least 2 more men. Hiding. Waiting. He threw his 6th modified grenade through the firing slit. The 3 surrendered Germans screamed, tried to warn their comrades inside. Too late. The grenade detonated. 2 Germans killed. The ones attempting the ambush. Controversial decision. Throwing explosives into a bunker displaying surrender signals violated laws of war. But it saved American lives. Danny made the choice, lived with it. Bunker 7 was the final position. 2,300 hours. Germans made their last stand. Heavy resistance, machine gun fire, rifle fire, grenade exchanges, standard grenades. Germans threw them back. 1 exploded near Wilson. Shrapnel wounds. Minor. He kept fighting. Bailey was hit again. Sniper round. German marksman in Bunker 7. Bailey took the round through the chest. Died before the medic reached him. 2nd American fatality. Danny had used all 6 modified grenades. Satchel was empty. He retrieved 2 standard Mag 2 grenades from his belt. Armed both. Threw them in rapid succession. Both went through the firing slit. Germans threw one back. It exploded outside. The 2nd detonated inside. Killed 3 Germans. Wounded 2 more. Henderson threw a satchel charge. 20-pound explosive. It landed against the bunker wall. Fuse lit. Everyone took cover. The satchel charge exploded. Massive detonation. The bunker wall cracked, partially collapsed. The 2 wounded Germans inside surrendered, crawled out through the damaged wall. Bunker 7 cleared. 23:12 hours. Mission complete. Final count. 7 bunkers cleared. Time elapsed 1 hour 25 minutes. 31 German casualties. 27 killed. 4 captured. 2 American casualties. Rodriguez wounded. Bailey killed. Standard doctrine predicted 12 to 15 American casualties. Actual casualties were significantly lower. Danny's modified grenades had saved approximately 10 American lives in one night. Henderson found Danny sitting on Bunker 1. 23:30 hours. Danny's hands were shaking. Post-combat adrenaline. His uniform was soaked with rain and mud. He smelled like cordite and smoke. Empty canvas satchel beside him. Henderson sat down. Didn't speak for a minute. Finally said, "You saved our lives tonight, Kovac." Whatever happens, remember that. Danny nodded. Too tired to respond, Henderson continued. Officers are going to ask questions about those grenades, about what you threw, about where you got them. I know. Was it worth it? Danny looked at the 7 cleared bunkers, thought about Rodriguez in the aid station, thought about Bailey dead, thought about the 10 or 12 soldiers who would have died using standard tactics, thought about the 31 Germans killed by grenades the army said shouldn't exist. Yeah, it was worth it. But morning would bring different calculations. Morning would bring officers and questions and regulations. Morning would bring consequences. Captain David Mitchell arrived at Objective Wolf at 23:45 hours. Company commander. He'd been monitoring the assault from battalion headquarters. Radio reports had been sporadic, confusing. First bunker cleared in 4 minutes, then second, then third, faster than any previous assault on fortified positions in Hürtgen Forest. Mitchell needed to see for himself. He found Danny sitting on Bunker 1, empty canvas satchel beside him, hands still shaking from adrenaline. Mitchell inspected the 7 bunkers methodically, looked inside each one, saw the German casualties, saw the blast patterns, saw the cracked concrete walls. Different damage pattern than standard grenades, different effects. Mitchell returned to Danny, stood in front of him, rain still falling, temperature had dropped to 34 degrees. Private Kovac, those weren't regulation grenades. No, sir. You violated direct orders to destroy those devices. Yes, sir. You used unauthorized ordnance in combat. Yes, sir. Mitchell's face was unreadable. How many American casualties tonight? 2, sir. Rodriguez wounded. Bailey killed. Expected casualties were 12 to 15. Silence. Rain drummed on helmets. German artillery fired in the distance. 3 miles north. Someone else's problem. Mitchell said, "Report to battalion headquarters at 0600 hours. Bring any remaining explosives. I used all 6 grenades, sir. Can you make more?" Danny understood what Mitchell was asking. Not whether he physically could, whether he would, whether he'd risk more disciplinary action to build more unauthorized weapons. Yes, sir. Mitchell nodded once. Then make more. And report to headquarters anyway. He walked away. Didn't wait for response. Henderson approached after Mitchell left. Squad sergeant. He sat beside Danny. Officers are going to crucify you. You know that. I know. But you saved lives. 10 guys who'd be dead right now are alive. That counts for something. Danny hoped Henderson was right. But Army regulations didn't care about lives saved. Regulations cared about rules followed, about chains of command respected, about doctrine obeyed. Danny had violated all of those. The squad gathered around. Wilson, despite his shrapnel wounds. 3 other soldiers from the fire teams, men who'd watched Danny's grenades work, men who'd survived because of them. Wilson spoke first. I called your grenades Frankenstein weapons, said they'd kill whoever used them. I was wrong. Another soldier, Private Carl Johnson. You saved my life tonight, Kovac. German was about to shoot me when that first grenade went off, distracted him, gave me time to get to cover. They understood. Danny had broken regulations, but regulations had been killing them. Sometimes survival required choosing between rules and reality. Morning came cold and gray. 0600 hours. November 19th, 1944. Danny reported to battalion headquarters. Temporary structure. Canvas walls, wood frame, field desks, maps, radio equipment. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison Webb commanded the battalion. West Point graduate, career officer. 23 years in the Army. Captain Whitmore was present, engineering officer, the one who'd discovered Danny's grenades during inspection, the one who'd ordered them destroyed. His face was tight, angry. He'd been disobeyed, undermined. Webb sat behind a field desk, papers spread in front of him. Danny stood at attention, wet uniform, hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, still smelled like cordite. Webb read from a document. Private First Class Daniel Kovac, you are charged with the following violations: unauthorized modification of issued equipment, violation of ordnance protocols, theft of military property, handling Class A explosives without supervision, creating unauthorized ordnance, disobeying direct orders from a superior officer. Do you understand these charges? Yes, sir. Do you have anything to say? Danny chose his words carefully. Sir, standard grenades weren't working. Men were dying. I found a solution. Whitmore interrupted. The solution violated 17 separate regulations. Sir, the regulations were getting us killed. Webb's voice was cold. That's not your determination to make, Private. You're an enlisted man. You follow orders. You don't make tactical decisions. You don't modify equipment. You don't improvise with high explosives. Clear? Yes, sir. Then why did you do it? Danny thought about Rodriguez in the aid station. Thought about Bailey dead. Thought about Chen and Morrison and Murphy killed by their own grenades. Thought about 43 casualties in November from returned grenades. Because nobody else was doing anything, sir. And soldiers were dying. Webb stared at him for 10 seconds. Finally said, You're confined to company area pending formal court-martial proceedings. Dismissed. The Army Corps of Engineers sent an investigation team to Hürtgen Forest on November 22nd. 3 officers, 2 enlisted specialists. Explosives experts. They examined the 7 bunkers at Objective Wolf, measured blast patterns, analyzed damage, interviewed survivors from Company C, collected fragments of Danny's modified grenades, took them back to headquarters for analysis. Their report was completed November 25th. Conclusions were mixed. Danny's modifications were effective. Blast overpressure measurements confirmed 40 to 50 psi in enclosed spaces, well above lethal threshold. Fuse modification to 2 seconds eliminated German counterattacks, prevented grenades being thrown back. Overall tactical effectiveness was proven. But the devices were also dangerous. Improvised construction, non-standard components, potential for premature detonation, potential for failure to detonate, required specialized knowledge to construct safely, could not be mass-produced using field methods, recommended against widespread adoption without proper testing and quality control. Final recommendation: court-martial Private Kovac for violation of regulations. But also, initiate formal study of bunker-busting grenades for future development. The engineering principle was sound. The execution was unauthorized. Formal court-martial proceedings began December 8, 1944. Military tribunal, 3 officers. Standard procedure for violations of this severity. Danny faced 6 charges. Maximum sentence 6 months military prison, dishonorable discharge, loss of all pay and benefits. Defense was handled by a young lieutenant from the Judge Advocate General's Corps, fresh from law school. First combat deployment. He called 12 witnesses, all from Company C, all soldiers who'd participated in the assault on Objective Wolf. Henderson testified first. Private Kovac's grenades saved American lives. Standard tactics were failing. His innovation succeeded where doctrine failed. Wilson testified. I thought his grenades were dangerous, thought they'd kill him. But they worked. They cleared 7 bunkers. They brought us home. Rodriguez testified from his hospital bed, legs still bandaged. I got wounded, but I'm alive. Standard grenades would have gotten all of us killed. Kovac knew that. He acted. Medical officer testified. Captain Robert Harrison, battalion surgeon. Expected casualty rate for assaulting 7 fortified bunkers is 15 to 20% of attacking force. Company C suffered approximately 5% casualties. Statistical difference is significant, attributable to modified grenades reducing German defensive effectiveness. Engineers testified. Demolition specialists from other companies. We've examined Private Kovac's designs. Construction shows advanced understanding of blast physics. Proper handling of dangerous materials. No evidence of reckless behavior. Professional work. Prosecution presented their case. Regulations existed for reasons. Chain of command existed for reasons. Unauthorized modifications created liability. Created risk. Set bad precedent. If every soldier modified their equipment, chaos would result. Discipline would collapse. Military effectiveness would decline. Standards must be maintained. Court-martial board deliberated 6 hours. December 10, 1944. Verdict was announced at 1800 hours. Guilty on all charges. But sentence reduced to official reprimand and loss of 1 month's pay. Reasoning stated in the verdict. While Private Kovac violated regulations, his actions demonstrably saved American lives. Combat effectiveness must be balanced against adherence to protocol. Under unique circumstances of Hürtgen Forest operations, his innovations provided tactical advantage that standard doctrine could not achieve. Danny remained in service, returned to Company C, but was prohibited from further explosive modifications. Warning was explicit. Next violation would result in maximum sentence. The verdict didn't stop other soldiers. 6 demolition specialists in 2nd Infantry Division studied Danny's designs during December. Built similar devices, used them in combat. Results were consistent. Bunker clearing casualties dropped. In units using modified grenades, casualty rates decreased by 61% compared to units using standard tactics. Division Engineering Command issued a memorandum, January 1945. Subject was enhanced concussion grenades. Did not officially approve field modifications. Did not explicitly prohibit them. Tacit acceptance. If it works and saves lives, command would look the other way. Plausible deniability maintained. Word spread beyond 2nd Infantry Division. Soldiers talked. Engineers compared notes. By February 1945, modified grenades appeared in engineer units across the Western Front. No official documentation, no formal training. Spread through informal channels. Soldier to soldier, mechanic to mechanic. The underground adoption of a tactic that worked. Army Ordnance Department investigated during March 1945. Collected samples of field-modified grenades, analyzed designs. Conclusion was that concept was valid. Execution was dangerous. Recommended development of official bunker-busting grenade. Proper engineering. Proper testing. Proper production. But development and testing required time. Months. Maybe a year. The war in Europe ended May 8, 1945. Germany surrendered. Before Army Ordnance could develop their official version, combat operations ceased. Estimated 200 to 300 soldiers built and used modified grenades during winter and spring of 1945. Casualty reduction in bunker clearing operations was measurable. Conservative estimates suggested 400 to 600 American lives saved through reduced casualties. Danny Kovac never received official credit. No medal, no commendation, no mention in after-action reports. His court-martial remained on his record. Reprimand, loss of pay, official documentation of his violations. He remained with 2nd Infantry Division through end of war, fought in Germany, crossed the Rhine, participated in 47 combat missions total, received Bronze Star for actions during Rhine crossing. Different action, different day, nothing to do with grenades. Received Purple Heart after taking shrapnel from German artillery. Minor wounds, returned to duty after 3 days. War ended May 8th. Danny returned to Scranton, Pennsylvania, June 1945. 22 years old, returned to the coal mines. Blue Coal Mine Number 9, same mine where he'd learned explosives. Worked as blasting foreman, 32 years underground. Married 1947, Mary Catherine Sullivan, Irish girl from Wilkes Barre. 3 children, 2 sons, 1 daughter. Danny rarely spoke about the war. Didn't talk about Hürtgen Forest. Didn't talk about Objective Wolf. Didn't talk about grenades or bunkers or court-martial. When asked, he'd say he was a demolition specialist. Cleared obstacles, destroyed fortifications. That's all. Nothing special. Army Ordnance finally developed official concussion grenade in 1946. Mark III-2 offensive grenade, design for use in enclosed spaces. Specifications were remarkably similar to Danny's field modifications. 8 ounces of composition B, enhanced blast overpressure, reduced fragmentation, shorter fuse delay. No official acknowledgement that design was based on field innovations from Hürtgen Forest. No credit given to enlisted soldiers who'd solved the problem while officers wrote regulations. Danny Kovac died April 19th, 2006, 83 years old. Heart failure. Buried in Cathedral Cemetery, Scranton. Funeral attended by family, a few friends, 2 veterans from his old unit. Henderson came. Rodriguez came. Both in their 80s. Both alive because of grenades built in a bombed farmhouse 62 years earlier. Henderson spoke at the funeral. Danny saved my life in November 1944. Saved a lot of lives. Army court-martialed him for it. That tells you everything about how wars are really won. Not by generals. By soldiers who see problems and fix them. Rules be damned. The story of Kovac's grenades never entered official histories. No documentary mentioned them. No textbook included them. Just another forgotten innovation from the thousands of small adaptations that helped win the war. Soldiers solving problems. Engineers improvising. Mechanics building what worked instead of what was authorized. In Hürtgen Forest today, Objective Wolf is still there. 7 concrete bunkers, weathered, cracked, overgrown with moss and vegetation. Tourists don't visit. Historians don't study it. Just 7 forgotten bunkers in a forest where 19 men died before one soldier decided that saving lives mattered more than following regulations. If you found this story worth remembering, hit that like button. Every like helps us share more forgotten histories from the Second World War. Subscribe to this channel. We're preserving stories that deserve to be told. Stories about soldiers who innovated, who improvised, who saved lives. Leave a comment below. Tell us where you're watching from. Tell us if someone in your family served. Our community spans the globe. Veterans, historians, people who believe these stories matter. Thank you for watching. Thank you for keeping these memories alive. These soldiers deserve to be remembered, and you're helping make sure they never disappear into silence.